Guys, can we have a huge round of applause for the panel and the dignitaries, guys? Can we have a huge round of applause? Because now we're kicking off the fest with the first panel discussion. For that, we have someone very special. He is a foodie, an author, and founder of the Government Passport. He is ranked amongst the 50 most influential people in the food industry in India. He has also been honored with the Lifetime Achievement Award for his contributions to the liquor industry and for keeping alive the legacy of India's best loved drink, Old Monk Rum, first distilled by his grandfather. Give a huge round of applause for Mr. Rocky Mohan.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Manish, for making this as punctual as possible. And it saves me a lot of hassle on a tight day. This is the panel that we are going to have a discussion on, and it's going to be short and sweet, half an hour of your time, precious time. And I'd like to invite Shaguni, Sakya first on the stage to please join me. Next in line, I'd like to welcome Mr. Nayanananda, Mr. Anand, Vishal, Mr. Vineet, Mishra, I think that does it. We're all here. Great. Please do sit down. Well, as rightly said by our chief guest, we are going through what I could say a V recovery, but I'm not too sure how much of a V recovery we are at, because revenge dining, revenge eating, revenge flying, and revenge shopping, I don't know how long it will carry on. But my panel will talk about the pivot that we've been able to bring about in our post-pandemic world. But first, I'd like to request you, being the lady here, to please let us know, and I'll read out my question to you. It's as simple as ever. Nepal is an economy which is so dependent on tourism, which the lockdown must have faced a multitude of problems. How did you address the issues post-opening and with the current status of the trade, especially keeping in mind your hotel and your CRS initiatives?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shaguni Singh Sakya. By profession, I'm a hotelier, executive director of the KGH Group of Hotels, which is a Nepali brand of hotels. And by passion, I'm a art, history, and heritage enthusiast. And food heritage is one of my specialities. So yeah, coming to your question, sir, definitely Nepal is a tourism-based economy. And yes, we did suffer because due to a lack of international tourists. But like in many countries, domestic tourism boomed. And in this way, the unorganized local sectors in the food business really came up. So what happened was like all the people who were like traveling to like say Bangkok or Dubai or Delhi or Goa for their vacations, they actually became adventurous and traveled domestic. So as you know, Nepal is an adventure tourism destination, and trekking, hiking, paragliding, kayaking, canoeing, these are our main activities of tourism. So a lot of youngsters, they went out and experimented in adventure tourism, which was like a boon to the food industry, especially at the village level, at the local level, at the trekking trails. So if you can, trekking, when you're trekking, basically you're walking for 3 hours, then you stop over in a small dhaba, in a bhatti, then you eat. You walk again and you eat. So like every point, like even if you go canoeing, you canoe for 1 hour, then you stop over, and then there's a place where you can eat. So like at the unorganized sector, I think it really boomed. The local economy, the local food, the small eateries along the trekking routes, along our domestic tourism routes really boomed. And what I can say is I myself went trekking to just last year to a place which is not an international trekking route like the Everest Base Camp. Like you guys must have seen Unchai, which is the latest Hindi movie to have like really shown the Everest Base Camp route. That is more of an international trekking destination. There are many other domestic trekking destinations, and I myself went there after 5 years last year, and I could see the difference in like how their services had improved because of the increase in domestic tourism. Yeah, so during like as soon as lockdown opened, I think everybody just went out of their houses and yeah.
So you believe that domestic tourism gave it the boost that it required?
Yeah.
And that's
so-
a very interesting factor because I was under the impression that there wouldn't be that much of domestic tourism.
No, actually in Nepal.
And especially in the
yeah.
case of the Kathmandu guest house. How
No.
did you pivot that?
See, I'm not talking about my guest house. I'm talking about the country as a whole because I'm the only Nepal representative here.
Well, I do want to focus on what you did with the Kathmandu guest house also.
Okay, so
because
like-
that's a legendary place.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. You know about my hotel. What we did was during lockdown, I think we all suffered. But as soon as it opened, mainly like we really focused on, increasing like the local customers. So like thankfully we have like a big garden and everybody was into like sitting in open spaces, not in closed spaces. So we kind of utilized the big garden to like have like what you say this the distant, what was it called, social distance kind of spacing in the garden. We increased a lot of rates went down like crazy, because there was so much competition. But like for us, like Kathmandu Guest House is a hotel that attracts international tourists, but our other hotels around the country, it's mostly for domestic tourism. So I can't really, complain so much because I think we have to look at the positive outcomes of what happened. And during COVID, I think a lot of us, in every country got time to like really rethink about our roots and like Sir here said, get back to our roots. The reawakening of our foundation, our roots came about, not just in food, but in everything. I myself studied the art history of my country for 2 years, and that was really beneficial for me, which I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
So you're a lady with multifarious talents.
Thank you so
With
much.
that, thank you very much. I'll move on to our other foreign guest here, Mr. Nayanananda from Sri Lanka. Welcome. Sri Lanka has had a double problem, not a single one like all the rest. You faced the problem of the pandemic, and then you went into a financial crisis, which was unbelievable. Sri Lanka is the economy is yet not back on its feet. So, I mean, you have a very unusual position because you also very highly dependent on tourism. And so how did the pandemic as well as the economic downturn affect you, and how have you recovered from it? Because you're also a consultant and have been doing it for 30 years.
Hi, Mohan. Okay, my name is Saman. I'm from Colombo, Sri Lanka. Work for a very old hotel group called Mount Lavinia as a food and beverage director. Okay, come to your question. Yes, it's not double impact. It's 4 times. Okay, one is
You say 4 times?
first one, 2018, we had the Easter attack. From that, tourism went down. Then slowly we were recovering. Then we had this pandemic effect, number 2. Then number 3, our government made a decision to go 100% carbonic, organic fertilizing. That also affected not little, it's a lot. And then number 4 is economic crisis. All these things are affected us a lot. Hotel industry, you mean we were down to 0. So now most of the hotel, some are about to leave our country, some chains. And then the recovery process was mainly we were depending on most of the importers. So that also stopped. Then recovery, what we did was we did our own growing in different part of the country, and they changed the menu into imported items to local ingredients, and
That's a wonderful idea, backward integration. I mean, we hear that mostly in the industry, mechanical industry, but never in food. So that's the first time I'm hearing about backward integration.
so we most of the hotels, the chefs tend to do that because there are lack of ingredients. So they manage to do that, and now slowly we are getting into feed. Hopefully, we will get a better improvement in soon. And also, we are getting lots of Indian towels, so why not?
You feel confident on the way forward?
Yes,
You do.
thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I now come to Mr. Vineet Mishra, a person who's been in the hotel trade for years and years and is quite a luminary in the trade. You have a very peculiar problem which none of the others have. You have a very deep-pocketed organization that backs you. The Accor Group is a very rich organization. It can afford to, fund very many businesses. Now, in your case, was your recovery based on what you were told from Paris, or was it based on what you decided to do locally here? So the pivot, as they say, was it more local or was it more international?
Well, Rocky, thank you for the introduction. And first of all, Manish, this is absolutely amazing. And thank you so much for putting this together. After a couple of years, we see this place buzzing the way it is. It's really, really good. Rocky, to answer your question, between Paris to India, there are many airports, many ports, etc. And there are many pivots which keep coming in. Now, you want to see it top down or bottom up is your choice. But at the end of it, Accor as a hospitality stroke, a large organization which is globally present with more than 5,000 hotels across the world, we of course work with a single message. At the same time, we also really, really respect and understand what works in a local scenario. You can look at things from globally, but today, yes, we are a very large global village. Across every place has its own nuances. Every place has its own challenges and own opportunities. So, fortunately, working with this phenomenal organization, it sends you a message of what is to be done right. First of all, for the artists, that's what we call all our people who work in Accor. Okay, we are artists with a heart. That's how we become artists, and we are empowered to do what is right for the unit, which adds up to being what is right for the organization. And last, I think pandemic taught us a lot of things. We as hoteliers sometimes get very classic. You know, A, B, C, never look at D, E, F. But over here, the story for us actually started from the letter G to Z. I mean, what is it that we haven't done, haven't explored? And of course, as recovery happens, we are looking at a few things which very specifically could be, that can be retained, and things which can let go because they were done only as a shot in the arm, as we call it, to keep the business sustainable. I'll give you an example. Today, Accor is just not into hotels. We are into a lot of other things, including concierge services globally, into cloud kitchens. We are trying to see how internationally we can actually service our hotels through a cloud kitchen itself to ensure room service is taken care of, and it actually takes a completely different line altogether. A food in your room in 15 minutes is what we are trying to see, no matter what you want. So these are, and this cannot happen only through a room service classic kitchen of a hotel. I'm just picking a one thing. But many such other initiatives. Home delivery, very often people used to feel scared of going to a hotel to eat. The food reached your home, now you're going to come back and trace that food back to a hotel or a restaurant. So we say, yes, things slowed down for hotels, for Accor, for Pullman, Novotel, which are run over here. But it's all back, and I think it'll only grow. The pivot actually is at various points, depends on which one you turn, which actually adds to the larger picture, and I'm sure the tree will grow further and further up in the future, spread its wings, and through the shadow, the talent which we keep speaking about today
is in for a pleasant surprise for themselves in the future. I see a lot of students here. You're actually in the right place at the right time. That's all I have to say. And inshallah, it'll all go beautifully for you also in the future.
Thank you very much, Vineet. Just an aside about talking about pivoting. I was in a conversation with Michelin star chef Chris Galvin a couple of days ago. He is the one who runs the Galvin at Windows at the Hyde Park corner in London. And he was telling me that during the pandemic, they were shut down completely. And he lost with two restaurants of his £1 million in the process of the lockdown. But the interesting part of the story that he told me was he opened something called Galvin at Home. And he recovered more than £1 million in the process of serving people at home. So here's a prime example of a Michelin star chef who pivoted very similar to what you're talking about, where he went ahead and recovered the monies he had lost.
Absolutely. I think that pause also gave us an opportunity to think, reflect, and then come back and take that risk of saying, okay, we are close to ground zero, not yet there. How is it that we bounce back?
Yes.
And I think everyone over here has done something differently at that point of time. The idea is to keep those learnings alive with you
Right.
and move ahead and keep on making yourself more efficient and more exciting in the future.
Whoever prepared that SOP from G to Z, I'd like to meet that person.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
I now move on to a very, very different industry altogether, and that is the cinema hall industry. And I will invite Mr. Anand Vishal on this. He doesn't need an introduction because Manish just introduced him a few minutes earlier. So my question to you, sir, is with empty seats and online content being your biggest challenges, how are you now driving business to your cinema halls?
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Manish. You just mentioned that this Michelin star lost 2 million. We are a listed company. In last 24 months, we lost 500 crores. So that's about, give or take, about 100 million that we lost. And we stayed invested in the business with the belief that this business is here to stay forever and ever.
You probably have deeper pockets than Accordas.
No, it's also the belief that cinemas will remain forever. I think the love for food and movies to this country will always be very, very deep-rooted. If we like something, it is movies for sure. We like our Bollywood stars. We like our food. And what it did to cinemas is we were the first to shut. If everyone remembers that cinema halls were ordered first to shut and the last to open. And whenever we opened, we were like an ECG graph. I mean, it was never stable. We were just opening, shutting, and the content was badly hit. So if I speak truly, I think from this calendar year, February onwards, we've stabilized and we've really stabilized the business. The content pipeline has flowed in really, really well, and we are seeing that people are coming back. What it also taught us is that the G to Z, what you need to explore, we did that as well. And we said that the new normal is going to be very, very different. We had the luxury of so many things, what we used to do. And just one example as to how we used to run our operations. Before the pandemic, we had 10,000 people working in for Inox, and we are 20% more screens, and we are still at 10,000 people. So we said that we are going to be more lean and mean, and we are going to have a profitable organization and see how we can do things differently. So we started doing that. We invented a lot. We rejigged our entire operations. We rejigged our entire food menu. We said that what is that consumer is looking at? The consumer habits had changed drastically. They wanted to order food, so we said that we need to be available on Swiggy, Zomato, and Easy Diner kind of app, and we said that we need to reach out to them if they can't reach out to us. And I can proudly say that we are on a road to doing about 500 deliveries. And this is cinema food I'm talking about. So we started doing that. We said that how do we place ourselves as a restaurant, as a food destination. So we changed our operations. So all the Inoxes today, you don't need a ticket to walk in. You can just walk in, eat, enjoy your food, and go out. OTT is our favorite subject. I think people have been asking. OTT is there and it's a complementing subject to us. It's never a competition to us. People who want to consume movies in theaters are always the ones to watch it in a theater. The sheer experience can't be replicated sitting at home. Never ever it will happen. The food that we serve, the sheer aroma of the popcorn that we pop, I don't think nobody ever can get that at home. So that will continue. The quality of and the experience that we give to the consumer. And also, we started doing whole different kind of a marketing initiative at our theaters. How do we get people in? And when we have people in, how do we ensure that his entertainment cycle gets fulfilled? I mean, we believe that we've become more of a food destination than a movie destination. Obviously, it's the movies which pulls people inside, but how do I engage him with his food habits and make us as a destination where he consumes his entertainment, dose of entertainment, food and everything. So that's what we started doing. Fortunately, it helps us because we are in prime destinations in all the 167 locations that we operate our cinemas in. OTT is here. OTT will remain there. I think if we ask personally, the kind of content that we watch at OTT is very, very different from what we would like to watch at theaters. So OTT is more of series that we like to watch, more is originals that we like to watch. And cinemas is all about tamasha, it's all about songs, it's all about drama, it's all about emotions that we want the consumers to be with. So yes, those 3 hours is an appointment that he gives us and we serve him. So I think, and also I think it's the 10,000 strong people who have made this possible. It's been a very, very tough and a long journey for us, and we believe that we put that in the past. So yeah, we are here to say we'll see more of cinemas opening up by Inox, by others, and movies will remain core of our heart for sure.
I love your commitment. Fantastic, absolutely. And now I move to last but never the least. My dear friend, Dr. Pushpesh Pant, who I also call Guruji, a man of many, many talents. I can't even start telling you. He's a repository of knowledge, of guidance, and whatever else. A helpful individual in the food industry. He has contributed a lot. So my question to you, Dr. Pant, is simple. I would like you to look into your knowledge crystal ball and share with us the trends that you have noticed happening post the pandemic.
Rocky Bhai makes me feel like a gypsy woman with a scarf down neck, long teeth. Look at the crystal ball. I think you'll permit me to sidestep your question. Your questions are always very difficult. Simple, you make them. It's like the old monk. You have one round and then you feel you are on top of the world. You feel like having another. And next morning you don't wake up with a hangover, but you feel that you better should have resisted.
That's what pays my bills.
Yes. And I think what the gentleman there from Inox, Mr. Anand, said is a very interesting word he used, consume. And I think food is consumed, or do we consume food, or does the food consume us? At my age, I think that food consumes us. So what I would treat as a crystal ball is this morning. This morning, my day began with Rocky Bhai on the social media doing Amritsari matti with chole and chutney and so on. Less than 15 seconds, but it triggers a chain of thought which takes me back to Jaisalmer, nestling under the shadow of the Golden Fort, the Dal Pakwan, which goes back to Sindh and comes back all the way here from Rajasthan. I came here and I met Vicky Ratnani. We had a very interesting conversation as the electrical connection was being restored and espresso was being made about traditional food. And the word tradition is so confusing that if you look at the crystal ball, I think tradition is going to be with us. And then I was very privileged to have a small privileged conversation with Mishra Saab here. And he talked in terms which is mind-blowing, that skill development, preserving a heritage, trying to conserve something is there, and also at the same time interest younger people into this. It's amazing to have a person like him sitting next to you. Then, it's very interesting. Uday Bhai made a conversation. and he talked in terms of where we are. And I think I'm a reasonably old man myself. I'm a youngster spring chicken compared to him. But when you go back, I remember in 1946, before India had become fully independent, there was an interim government. There was an Asian Relations Conference organized. And I think Sarojini Naidu was the one who came out with the phrase, a brief shining moment. This is the brief shining moment. I think what Uday Bhai says is another brief shining moment. And I address this to the youngsters because I think the majority of the population of India is under 30 years who have not experienced what we have experienced. Their heartaches are not there. Hopefully they will have no heartaches. There will be some heartaches, all right, but they will get over it. And I think what is interesting is that I was just working on a small book on history of Delhi through food. And then I came to a conclusion that I knew nothing about the city's food, where I had spent major part of my life, 60 years. I used to call myself a refugee until somebody asked me, which part of Lahore are you from, or Pindi? So I said, there are other refugees also. And you know, it's interesting, when we talk in terms of food in Delhi today, the gentleman I was working in, my research assistant is 27, 28, and he said, "Aapko kuch pata nahi hai, aaj bacche kya kha rahe hain?" And then you walk into Cyber Hub, you walk into 32nd milestone, you walk everywhere, you talk in terms of food post-COVID, and you realize that a person like me is still traveling with a mask in my some pocket. I'm worried. But there is only one young person using a mask in the audience. The rest are carefree. They would take the risk. Now, what I'm interested in is this, that when Uday Bhai said that please make the most of this moment, because the G20 is going to be a very brief shining moment. The Amrit Kal Mahotsav is going to be over. And by the time the centenary of India is being celebrated, my crystal ball tells me definitely the lights will go out for me. I will not be around there. But the interesting part is this, what would you like to eat? How are you going to respond to the post-COVID situation? Interesting part is that you can probably do without consuming films, but you can't do without consuming food. You can't survive. So regardless of what happens, regardless of the problems you are going through, famine, war, food will be there. And he did mention Ukraine, and your Ukraine food exports come back. But we shall not get into those complicated international relations. I think an interesting thing which Uday Bhai said, I think, I always love listening to him because he's identified as a person in a certain camp, but he's having a beautiful tug of war with the Supreme Court at the moment. I look forward to the cases hearing, etc. But the interesting part is this: he's so fair when he says that my food is my identity and other person's food is his identity. So if you're talking of Northeast, can you do without pork? Can you do without unmentionable word beef? Can you talk without that in Kerala? Can you do without that in Goa? Can you do that without the travel belt? So I think and then he said that everybody's food is his or her identity. I think that is what we have to think about, that are we going to live with tolerance, with the plurality in food? And food could also lead to riots. But can we have a situation where we realize what our footprint in food was, but don't say Indian food is found in Nepal. It is Nepalese food. We don't say that it's Indian food. I was talking to Mr. Anand, and I was saying that the point is that Indians think that idiyappam belongs to them. Did you realize that string hoppers come from Indonesia? Idli comes from Indonesia, string hoppers come from Sri Lanka, and then the curries, we think, yeah, this is our curry, it has gone to Thailand. But it's totally transformed, like the temple in Angkor Wat is, like the stoop in Borobudur is, like the Shigadan Pagoda in Myanmar is. So let's not have this parochial hang-up कि हम तो विश्व गुरु है, सब कुछ हमारा है, बाकी दुनिया का कुछ नहीं है. And we have a major problem with China at the moment, but they are a major civilization. They are our enemy number one. But we can't run down Chinese food. And we can't say कि उनका खाना तो वही है जो कलकत्ता में टेंगड़ा में बिकता था.
So may I draw you back, Dr. Draw you back to the pivot.
Yes, to go back.
Because these young kids would like to know what is their future. The history of our food is a separate
Your
story.
future is brightest. That is what the crystal ball says. I think you are not going to suffer at all because all of you, again, are interested. What Vineet Bhai was saying, can you be creative in what you are? Everybody can cook a butter chicken a la nothing, So you may say, I created it. But when you create a butter chicken, are you going to have your mark on it? And I think the problem is that Rocky Bhai said something about Michelin star chefs. I'm not really bothered. There is no Michelin guide for India. There never will be one because there is so much diversity. Benchmarking is very, very difficult. You could set up as an entrepreneur a delivery system. You could be partnering with Inox and pulling people into their screens. You could possibly be working with Mr. Mishra's vision, that backward integration and getting back to room service being transformed. You don't necessarily have to work. It is, see, I will end with very, I mean, this is a short session and he's looked into the watch twice and I'm a very chaotic speaker to begin with.
But that's all right. Your chaos is good fun.
I think I compare people in catering business, people you are in kitchen craft and so on, with surgeons. You go through the same medical school curriculum. But some doctors, including my father who was a doctor, kill patients. Blissfully, he didn't kill too many, didn't have a medical negligence issues against him. Some people cure. Some people work in government hospitals, some people work in municipal hospitals, some people are quacks, and some people are brilliant people. It's like the lawyers. So you compare to think yourself as an artist. You are like a musician. You can improvise. You can create. And that is what is missing at the moment. I think COVID did the great thing to us, that we are forced to think again your own identity, plurality of this nation, and creativity in cooking.
Thank you, Dr. Pant. That's extremely kind of you. I have to close now, and I've got Manish bearing his eyes at me saying, don't overrun. So I'm going to thank Mr. Nayanananda. Thank you for being here, sir. Oh, sorry. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Have a pleasant stay in India. Yes. Dr. As usual, pleasure. Vineet, thank you very much. And thank you once again, Sag. Thank you, Manish Baheti. Thank you.